Reina had always imagined her wedding night would be filled with soft laughter, clinking bangles, and whispered promises, yet nothing about the evening felt ordinary from the moment she stepped into her new home. Her husband, Arham, smiled constantly, too constantly, as though he were trying to hide something behind that smooth, practiced charm. Still, she pushed away the uneasiness. After all, nerves were natural. 2 hours after she removed the heavy bridal makeup that had covered her face since dawn, the house stood strangely silent, the kind of silence that presses against the walls and listens to the heartbeat of those inside. When she entered the bedroom, her reflection in the mirror startled her, not because she looked different without the layers of foundation and shimmering shadow, but because she finally looked like herself again, simple, honest, unmasked. She sighed with relief, wiping the last trace of lipstick. The air felt cooler on her skin, her thoughts clearer. But even in that clarity, she felt watched. Arham entered then, but something about him had shifted. His smile had faded, replaced by an unreadable expression. "You look different," he murmured, voice low, confused, as though he had expected something else entirely. Reina laughed awkwardly. "Of course I look different. The makeup is gone." She waited for him to laugh with her, to dismiss the tension, but he didn't. His eyes scanned her face in a slow, unsettling way, as if he were comparing her to a picture in his mind and finding the picture wrong. The night grew heavier. Rain began tapping against the window like impatient fingers. When Reina stepped back, she almost tripped over her bridal lehenga pooled on the floor. She reached for it instinctively, but Arham grabbed her wrist. "Leave it," he said sharply. She froze, stunned. Why was he acting so strange? "Arham, are you okay?" she asked softly. "I'm fine," he replied, but the lie hung thick between them. For a moment, he looked as if he wanted to say something more, but instead he walked out of the room, leaving the door slightly ajar. Reina stood there, heart knocking against her ribs, wondering what had suddenly cracked open inside the man she had married only hours ago. She tried to calm herself by unpacking her small bridal suitcase. Bangles, dupatta, a letter her mother had tucked in. She touched it to her forehead, praying for courage. Minutes passed, then an hour. Still no Arham. Eventually, exhaustion pulled at her eyelids. She lay down on the bed, intending only to rest for a moment. That moment stretched into unconsciousness. She did not hear the soft footsteps returning. She did not see the shadow standing at the doorway, watching her sleep. And she certainly did not anticipate the scream that would shake the house awake 2 hours later. The maid found Reina first, lying motionless near the foot of the bed, her bangles shattered on the floor, her face strangely pale. Nothing around her was disturbed, no sign of struggle, no bruise, no wound, nothing that explained how a healthy young bride could be gone so suddenly. The maid shrieked for help, and soon neighbors gathered, voices colliding in shock. Arham stood among them, expression blank, eyes red. When the police arrived, they questioned him immediately. His response, quiet, trembling, sent a chill through everyone listening. "I don't know what happened. She didn't look like the girl I married." The officers exchanged glances. One of them asked, "What do you mean by that?" Arham swallowed hard. "I mean, when she removed her makeup, she looked completely different. Like another person. I thought it was just the makeup, but I don't know why, something felt wrong. She wasn't the same." The crowd murmured in confusion and discomfort. Grief can twist the mind, they thought. Maybe he was in shock. But then he said something even stranger, his voice breaking. "She looked exactly like someone I knew years ago." "Someone who died." Gasps rippled through the room. The police leaned in. "Who?" they asked. "My first fiancée," he whispered, eyes unfocused. "Her name was Misha. She died in an accident." And when Reina wiped her face clean, for a moment I swear I was looking at Misha's ghost. A shudder ran through the listeners. Some stepped back, some clutched their chests. The maid made the sign to ward off evil. Stories spread quickly after that. The neighbors whispered that Reina's soul must have been frightened by his words, by his past, by the eerie resemblance he insisted upon. Some even claimed the house was cursed, that the ghost of the dead fiancé had never left. But the truth, buried beneath superstition and grief, was painfully simple. Reina had suffered a silent cardiac arrest in her sleep, triggered by sudden stress and exhaustion. Doctors later explained this, but the rumor lived on, because people believed stories more than medical reports. As for Arham, he sat alone in the dimly lit living room long after everyone had left, replaying his own words in his head. He hadn't meant them the way they had sounded. He hadn't meant to frighten her, hadn't meant to compare her to a memory that still haunted him. In reality, he had been shocked, not by her appearance, but by how much she resembled the girl he had once lost, how grief had ambushed him at the worst possible moment. And now he had lost again, this time a wife who had done nothing but trust him. His final words that night echoed in his mind relentlessly: "She didn't look like the girl I married." But the truth he could never confess was this: Raina had looked exactly like the girl he had once loved and failed to save. And that recognition, deep, painful, unspoken, was the very thing that had broken him long before the tragedy ever occurred.